A story of a girl who thought she was nothing, a wolfless charity case tolerated by a court that despised her, until the night she fled a royal feast in tears and discovered that the most powerful Lycan king in the realm had been watching her all along, feeling every wound through a bond she didn't know existed, waiting for the moment she was ready to claim her destiny at his side. The wine hit her chest like a baptism in humiliation. Cold. Red. Spreading across the pale blue silk of her borrowed gown, the only decent dress she owned, and even that was a hand-me-down from Lady Margaret's daughter, given with a smile that never reached the woman's eyes. Now it was ruined, and the entire feast hall had gone silent. Evelyn stood frozen, wine dripping from her bodice onto the marble floor of the Moon Feast banquet hall, while 200 pairs of eyes turned to stare. The Duke's daughter, Lady Charlotte, beautiful and golden and cruel, stood before her with an empty crystal goblet in her hand and an expression of perfectly practiced shock on her face. "Oh my goodness," Charlotte gasped, one delicate hand flying to her mouth. "I'm so sorry. How clumsy of me. I must have tripped on something." Her eyes, cold and calculating despite the false concern, flicked deliberately to Evelyn's worn slippers, visible beneath the ruined hem. The message was clear. You're what I tripped on. You, who shouldn't even be here. Evelyn's throat closed. She could feel the stares like physical touches. Could hear the whispers already starting, spreading through the hall like poison. The ward. No wonder, she has no grace. Wolfless bastard. Why is she even allowed at the moon feast? Charlotte leaned in close, her voice dropping to a whisper only Evelyn could hear, her smile never wavering. Even magic can't make a wolfless bastard belong here. The words hit harder than the wine. Because they were true. Evelyn was wolfless. Had been her entire life. 18 years old, and she'd never shifted, never felt the call of the moon, never heard the howl of her inner wolf. In a world where your wolf was your identity, your power, your worth, she had nothing. She was nothing. A charity case. A ward of the crown. A girl with no pack, no family name anyone would speak aloud, no past anyone would explain. 3 years ago, the Lycan king himself had ordered her brought to court and placed under royal protection. No one knew why, including her. He'd never spoken to her, never acknowledged her existence. She was housed in the servants' wing, educated alongside the noble children, but never one of them, given enough to survive, but never enough to truly belong. And tonight, the grand moon feast celebrating the king's 10th year of reign, she'd been foolish enough to hope. Hope that maybe, dressed in borrowed finery, she could blend in. Could pretend, just for one night, that she was someone who mattered. Instead, she was standing in the center of the banquet hall, wine-soaked and humiliated, while the entire court watched her break. Charlotte's eyes gleamed with triumph as she straightened, her voice carrying now, loud enough for those nearby to hear. "You really should be more careful, Evelyn. These floors can be treacherous. Perhaps you should return to your chambers and clean up. Leave." That's what she meant. Go back to the shadows where you belong. Evelyn's hands were shaking. Her vision blurred with tears she absolutely could not shed. Not here. Not in front of them. But she could feel it, the crack spreading through her chest, the final breaking of something that had been barely holding together for 3 years. All the whispered insults, the deliberate exclusions, the constant reminder that she was tolerated but never wanted. It all came crashing down at once. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. What could she possibly say? She had no wolf to defend her honor. No family to demand satisfaction. No power, no position, no voice that anyone cared to hear. So instead, she ran. Evelyn gathered her wine-soaked skirts in trembling hands and fled. She heard the eruption of whispers behind her, felt the weight of their judgment following her out of the hall, but she didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Her slippers slapped against marble, then stone, then the packed earth of the castle's garden paths as she burst through a side entrance and into the night. The moon feast was held on the night of the full moon, the most sacred night in the Lycan calendar. Above her, the moon hung huge and luminous, bathing the royal gardens in silver light. It should have been beautiful. Instead, it felt like mockery. Because she couldn't feel it. Couldn't feel the pull that every other shifter in that hall felt in their bones. The moon called to the wolves, sang to their other halves, blessed them with power and purpose. But not her. Never her. Evelyn stumbled off the main path and into a secluded corner of the garden, where ancient oak trees formed a natural alcove. Her chest heaved as she tried to breathe through the sobs clawing their way up her throat. Don't cry. Don't you dare cry. You're stronger than this. But she wasn't. She'd been pretending to be strong for 3 years, and tonight had finally proved what she'd always suspected. She didn't belong here. Would never belong here. And no amount of hoping or trying or staying invisible would ever change that. The tears came hot and fast, streaming down her cheeks as her carefully constructed walls finally crumbled. She pressed her hands to her face, shoulders shaking, and let herself break. She didn't hear him approach. One moment she was alone, drowning in her own grief and humiliation. The next, something heavy and warm settled over her shoulders. Evelyn gasped, her head snapping up. A cloak. Rich, dark fabric lined with fur, still holding the warmth of whoever had been wearing it. It smelled like pine and smoke and something wild and untamed that made her wolfless heart stutter. She turned. And froze. The Lycan king stood 3 feet away. Roman Blackthorn. 10th of his name. Ruler of the Northern Territories. The most powerful alpha in living memory. Evelyn had seen him before, of course, from a distance. In the throne room during formal audiences. Crossing the courtyard surrounded by his guard. Always remote, always commanding, always utterly untouchable. But she'd never been this close. Never seen the sharp lines of his face clearly. Never noticed the scar that cut through his left eyebrow. Never realized how tall he was, easily 6.5 feet, broad-shouldered and powerful even in his formal black and silver feast attire. And his eyes. God, his eyes. Gold. Pure molten gold, glowing faintly in the moonlight with the presence of his wolf just beneath the surface. Those eyes were fixed on her with an intensity that stole the breath from her lungs. Who did this to you? His voice was low, rough, dangerous. Not a question. A demand. Evelyn's mind went blank. The Lycan king was standing in front of her. Had followed her from the feast. Had given her his cloak. Was speaking to her. To her. In 3 years, he'd never once acknowledged her existence. And now he was looking at her like. Her voice came out broken, thick with tears. Your Majesty, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, I shouldn't have. Who did this to you? He took a step closer, and Evelyn's back hit the oak tree behind her. Not threatening, but focused. Every ounce of his considerable presence concentrated on her tear-stained face. The wine, he said, his eyes dropping to the ruined gown barely visible beneath his cloak. That wasn't an accident. It wasn't a question. He knew. But how could he know? He'd been at the high table, surrounded by visiting dignitaries and court officials. She was nobody. Why would he have been watching her? It was nothing, Evelyn whispered, her hands clutching his cloak tighter around her shoulders. Just a silly accident. I should go. I'm sorry for disturbing. Don't. The single word stopped her mid-sentence. Roman's joy tightened. Something flickered in his golden eyes, something that looked almost like pain. Don't apologize for being hurt. Don't minimize what they did. And don't, his voice dropped even lower, became almost a growl. Don't ever think you're nothing. Evelyn stared at him, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. How did he know? How did he know that was exactly what she'd been thinking? I don't understand, she managed. Why are you here? Why do you care? She wanted to ask, but couldn't quite make herself say it. Roman was silent for a long moment, his eyes searching her face like he was trying to memorize every detail. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough with something that sounded like barely restrained fury. Because I've been watching you break for 3 years. And I will not watch it happen one more time. Evelyn's breath caught. Watching her? For 3 years? I don't, she started, but he shook his head. Tell me their names. His hands flexed at his sides, and she could see his wolf pressing against his control, eyes glowing brighter, presence expanding. Everyone who's hurt you. Everyone who's made you feel like you don't belong. Give me their names, Evelyn. He knew her name. The Lycan king knew her name. Your Majesty, please, it's not. Roman. She blinked. What? My name is Roman. And you will use it. It wasn't a request. Now tell me who hurt you tonight. Evelyn's mind was reeling. This couldn't be real. The King Roman couldn't be standing here, couldn't be looking at her like she mattered, couldn't be demanding justice on her behalf. Lady Charlotte, she heard herself whisper. The Duke's daughter. But it was just nothing. Roman's voice was pure alpha command now, the kind of tone that made every wolf within hearing distance want to bare their throat in submission. She humiliated you in front of the entire court. Deliberately. Cruelly. He took another step closer, and Evelyn could feel the heat radiating from his body, could smell pine and smoke, and something uniquely him that made her head spin. Do you know why you're here, Evelyn? He asked quietly. Why I brought you to court 3 years ago. Why I placed you under royal protection. She shook her head mutely, tears still streaking her cheeks. Roman lifted one hand slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he brushed his thumb across her cheek, wiping away a tear with a gentleness that seemed impossible from someone so powerful. The touch sent electricity racing through her entire body. Because you're mine, he said simply. You've been mine since the moment you turned 18 and the bond snapped into place. And I've been trying to give you time to grow, to find yourself, to be ready. But watching them hurt you tonight. His eyes flashed pure gold, and she felt the force of his wolf pressing outward. That ends now. Evelyn couldn't breathe. Bond? What bond? I don't understand, she gasped. I'm wolfless. I can't have a bond. I can't have a... She couldn't even say it. Mate. Because mates were sacred. Mates were blessed by the moon herself. Mates were for powerful wolves with ancient bloodlines and not for charity cases with no wolf and no name. Roman's expression softened slightly, though his eyes remained fierce. You're not wolfless, Evelyn. You're dormant. There's a difference. His hand moved from her cheek to cup the back of her neck, his touch firm and grounding. Your wolf is sleeping, locked away behind walls so old and so strong that you can't feel her. But she's there. I can feel her through our bond. That's impossible, Evelyn whispered. Is it? Roman's thumb brushed the pulse point on her neck, and she shivered. Then why can I feel your emotions? Why have I felt every insult they've thrown at you, every night you've cried yourself to sleep, every moment of pain for 3 years? Evelyn's world tilted. 3 years of isolation. Of feeling like she was slowly dying inside. And he'd felt all of it? Why didn't you say anything? The question came out broken. If you knew, if you felt it, why did you leave me alone? Pain flashed across Roman's face, genuine, deep pain. Because you were 15 when I found you. Barely more than a child, traumatized and terrified. And he gestured to himself. 28 years old. A king. An alpha with more blood on his hands than you can imagine. The bond between us is sacred, but it would have been wrong to claim you then. Wrong to put that weight on your shoulders when you weren't ready. His hand tightened slightly on her neck, possessive but careful. So I waited. I brought you here where you'd be safe, where you could heal, where you could grow into yourself. I stayed away even though every instinct I have screamed to claim you, to protect you, to show everyone that you were mine. But tonight, his voice dropped to a growl. Tonight they broke you. and I will not allow that to stand. Evelyn was shaking, but not from cold. The Lycan king Roman was standing in a moonlit garden, holding her like she was something precious, telling her she was his mate. This couldn't be real. I'm nobody, she whispered. I have no pack, no family, no wolf. You're everything. The intensity in his voice made her knees weak. You're my fated mate. My queen. The other half of my soul. Roman's forehead dropped to rest against hers, his breath warm on her lips. And every person in that hall who's hurt you? They will answer to me. Starting with Lady Charlotte. Roman, no, Evelyn gasped. She's the Duke's daughter. You can't. I'm the king. I can do anything I want. His smile was sharp, dangerous. And what I want is to make it very clear what happens to people who hurt what's mine. His. The word sent a shiver through her that had nothing to do with fear. But first, Roman said, pulling back slightly to look into her eyes, I need you to understand something. This bond between us? It's your choice. I've felt it for 3 years, but you're only just learning about it now. If you need time, if you want space, if you're not ready, I'll wait. I'll wait as long as it takes. His jaw tightened. But I won't hide anymore. I won't pretend you're just another ward. And I sure as hell won't let anyone hurt you again. His hand moved to cup her face, his touch achingly gentle despite the fury in his eyes. So tell me, Evelyn, what do you want? What did she want? She'd spent 3 years feeling invisible, unwanted, wrong. And now the most powerful man in the kingdom was looking at her like she was the center of his entire world. Like she mattered. Before she could answer, voices echoed from the garden path. Roman's head snapped up, his entire body going rigid. Your Majesty. A guard's voice called. Your Majesty, forgive the interruption, but Duke Ashford is demanding an audience. He says his daughter has been insulted and requires. Roman's growl cut through the night like a blade. Pure alpha dominance rolled off him in waves, so powerful that Evelyn heard the guard's voice choke off mid-sentence. Tell the Duke, Roman said, his voice carrying easily across the garden, that I will address his concerns in the throne room. In 1 hour. And tell him to bring Lady Charlotte. Yes, Your Majesty. Footsteps retreated rapidly. Roman looked back down at Evelyn, and his expression softened slightly. This is going to get complicated, he said quietly. The Duke is powerful. He has allies on the council. And when I publicly claim you as my mate, his thumb brushed across her lower lip. There will be those who oppose it. Then maybe you shouldn't, Evelyn started, but Roman shook his head. No. I've hidden long enough. Let them oppose. Let them try. His eyes flashed gold. You're my mate. My queen. And anyone who has a problem with that can challenge me for the throne. The absolute certainty in his voice made Evelyn's heart race. Come, Roman said, taking her hand. We're going back to the feast hall. Evelyn's stomach dropped. Roman, no, I can't. I'm covered in wine. You're wearing my cloak. Standing beside me. Under my protection. His fingers threaded through hers, strong and sure. And everyone in that hall is about to understand exactly what that means. Hey there, beautiful souls. Welcome back to Cindy's Wolfheart Stories. Please hit that subscribe button right now and drop a comment telling me where you're watching. The walk back to the feast hall felt like marching toward an execution. Evelyn's hand trembled in Roman's grip, but he held firm, not dragging her, but anchoring her. His presence beside her was overwhelming. She could feel the controlled power radiating from him, the barely leashed dominance of an alpha king who'd spent 3 years watching and waiting. And now is done waiting. I can't do this, Evelyn whispered as they approached the massive oak doors. She could hear the feast continuing inside, music, laughter, the clink of goblets. Roman, please. Everyone will. Everyone will see their future queen. He stopped just outside the doors, turning to face her. Evelyn, look at me. She forced herself to meet those golden eyes. You've spent 3 years believing you're nothing. But that was never true. You're a survivor. You've endured their cruelty with grace. You've maintained your dignity even when they tried to strip it from you. His free hand came up to cup her face. That takes more strength than any wolf could give you. But I'm not. You're mine. The words were simple, absolute. My mate. My equal. My choice. The moon herself blessed this bond. Do you think she makes mistakes? Evelyn's throat tightened. I don't know what the moon thinks. I've never felt her call. You will. Roman's thumb brushed her cheekbone. When your wolf wakes, and she will wake, you'll understand. But until then, you have me. My strength. My protection. My power. His voice dropped to a growl. And my fury at anyone who tries to hurt you again. Before Evelyn could respond, he pushed open the doors. The feast hall fell silent. 200 pairs of eyes turned toward the entrance, toward their king standing in the doorway with a wine-stained girl in a borrowed gown, his royal cloak wrapped around her shoulders, his hand clasping hers like a lifeline. Evelyn wanted to disappear, wanted to melt into the floor. But Roman's grip kept her upright, kept her steady. He didn't speak immediately. Just stood there, letting every person in the hall see them together. Letting the message sink in. Then he began walking. Not toward the high table where he'd been seated. Toward the center of the hall. Toward where Lady Charlotte stood with a group of noble daughters, her perfect face frozen in shock. The crowd parted like water before them. Roman stopped 3 feet from Charlotte. The Duke's daughter had gone pale, her earlier confidence crumbling under the weight of the king's attention. Lady Charlotte. Roman's voice carried through the silent hall. You seem to have had an accident earlier this evening. Charlotte dropped into a curtsy, her hands shaking. Your Majesty, yes, I accidentally. Accidentally. Roman's tone could have frozen fire. Tell me, my lady, how does one accidentally spill wine with such precision that it ruins a gown but misses the floor entirely? Charlotte's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. And then Roman continued, his voice dropping to something darker. How does one accidentally whisper insults while apologizing? The color drained completely from Charlotte's face. I never. You called her a wolfless bastard. It wasn't a question. In front of witnesses. After deliberately humiliating her. Your Majesty, please, I meant no disrespect. No disrespect? Roman's laugh was sharp, dangerous. You disrespected my mate. My chosen. The future queen of the Northern Territories. He let the words hang in the air, watching shock ripple through the hall. Tell me, Lady Charlotte, what punishment do you think that deserves? Evelyn's heart stopped. Mate. He'd said it publicly. In front of the entire court. The whispers erupted like wildfire. Mate? The wolfless girl? Impossible. The king can't be serious. Charlotte had tears streaming down her face now. Your Majesty, I beg your mercy, I didn't know. You didn't know that cruelty has consequences? Roman's eyes flashed gold. You didn't know that hurting the defenseless makes you a coward, not a lady? Or you didn't know that she was mine? He paused, letting her squirm. Because I assure you, Lady Charlotte, ignorance is not an excuse. You saw someone vulnerable, someone alone, someone you perceived as beneath you, and you chose cruelty. That tells me everything I need to know about your character. Duke Ashford pushed through the crowd, his face red with fury and fear. Your Majesty, my daughter is young, foolish, she made a mistake. Surely we can resolve this without. Without what, Duke Ashford? Roman's attention shifted to the older man. Without holding nobility accountable for their actions? Without making it clear that rank does not grant permission to torment those with less power? He took a step forward, and the Duke actually stepped back. Your daughter humiliated my mate in front of the entire court. She's been part of a campaign of cruelty that has lasted 3 years. And you, Duke Ashford, have allowed it. Encouraged it, even. The Duke's eyes widened. Your Majesty, I swear I had no knowledge. You had knowledge. Roman's voice cut like a blade. Every noble in this hall knew. They watched. They participated. They made Evelyn's life a nightmare because they thought she had no protection, no champion. His hand tightened on Evelyn's. They were wrong. The silence in the hall was absolute. "Lady Charlotte," Roman said, his tone formal now, carrying the weight of royal decree. "You are hereby banned from court for 1 year. You will return to your father's estates, and you will not set foot in the capital until I personally lift this ban. Do you understand?" Charlotte sobbed. "Yes, Your Majesty." "And Duke Ashford." Roman's eyes were cold. "Your seat on the council is suspended pending investigation into your house's conduct. If I find that you've been actively working against the crown's ward against my mate, there will be further consequences." The Duke's face went white. "Your Majesty, please. This audience is over." Roman turned, bringing Evelyn with him, addressing the entire hall. "Let me make something absolutely clear. Evelyn is under my personal protection. She is my fated mate, blessed by the moon. Any insult to her is an insult to me. Any harm to her will be answered with the full force of the crown." He paused, letting his alpha presence fill the room until wolves throughout the hall had to fight the urge to bow. "She is your future queen, and you will treat her accordingly." Then he led Evelyn out of the feast hall, leaving chaos in their wake. Roman didn't stop walking until they were deep in the royal wing of the castle, far from the feast and the shocked whispers. He led Evelyn through corridors she'd never been allowed to enter, past guards who bowed deeply as they passed, finally stopping before a set of ornate double doors carved with wolves and moons. His private chambers. "Roman," Evelyn breathed, "I shouldn't. You're my mate. You belong wherever I am." He pushed open the doors and gently tugged her inside. The chambers were vast, a sitting room with a massive fireplace, shelves lined with books and maps, comfortable furniture that somehow managed to look both regal and lived in. Through an open doorway, she could see a bedroom with a bed large enough for a giant. Or a king who sometimes slept in wolf form. Roman released her hand and moved to add wood to the fire, stirring it back to life. The flames cast dancing shadows across his face, highlighting the sharp angles and the weight he carried. "You should sit," he said quietly. "We need to talk." Evelyn sank onto a cushioned chair near the fire, still wrapped in his cloak, her mind reeling. Mate. He'd claimed her publicly, banished a duke's daughter, threatened one of his most powerful nobles. For her. Why? The word came out hoarse. "Why now? You said you've known for 3 years. Why reveal it tonight?" Roman was silent for a moment, staring into the flames. When he finally turned to face her, the exhaustion in his expression made him look almost human. Almost vulnerable. "Because I'm a selfish bastard," he said roughly. "Because watching you break tonight, seeing the hope finally die in your eyes, I couldn't take it anymore." He moved to crouch in front of her chair, bringing them eye to eye. "I told myself I was being noble, giving you time, letting you grow up. But the truth is, I was a coward." Evelyn shook her head. "You're not." "I am." His jaw tightened. "I was afraid. Afraid you'd reject the bond. Afraid you'd hate me for claiming you so young. Afraid that making you a target would get you killed." He reached up, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "Because there are people in this court who want me dead, Evelyn. And the moment I claimed you publicly, I painted a target on your back." Ice flooded Evelyn's veins. "What?" "Duke Ashford isn't just a cruel nobleman. He's part of a conspiracy to overthrow me." Roman's voice was matter-of-fact, but his eyes were deadly serious. "There's a faction of nobles who believe I'm too young, too progressive, too willing to change old ways. They want me dead and a puppet king on the throne. And they've been using you as a test." Evelyn's breath caught. "What do you mean?" "You were never just a ward. You're my mate. The council suspected it from the moment I brought you here, even if they didn't know for certain. So they've spent 3 years tormenting you, watching to see if I'd react. If I'd break my own rules and claim you before you were ready." Roman's hands clenched into fists. "Every insult, every humiliation, it was bait. Trying to force my hand. And tonight, it worked." Horror crashed over Evelyn. I ruined everything. If I just stayed calm, if I hadn't run. No. Roman's hands came up to frame her face. This isn't your fault. If anything, I should have acted sooner. Should have protected you better. But Evelyn, you need to understand, there's no going back now. I've claimed you publicly. The conspiracy will move against us. Soon. How soon? Days. Maybe hours. His thumbs brushed her cheekbones. They'll try to separate us. Discredit you. Possibly even try to kill you to break me. We have to be ready. I don't understand. Evelyn's voice shook. Why would killing me break you? The bond isn't complete. You said I have a choice. Because I love you. The words hung in the air between them. Roman's expression was raw, vulnerable in a way she suspected few people ever saw. I've loved you since the moment the bond snapped into place. I've felt every emotion you felt, carried every hurt, celebrated every small joy. I've watched you read in the gardens when you thought no one was looking. I've heard you sing when you believed you were alone. I've seen your kindness, your strength, your resilience. His voice dropped to a whisper. You're everything good in my life, Evelyn. And if they take you from me, I won't survive it. Not intact. Not as the king this realm needs. His forehead dropped to rest against hers. So yes, killing you would break me. Which is exactly why they'll try. Evelyn's mind spun. 3 years of isolation suddenly made terrible sense. He'd been protecting her by staying away. Had been trying to keep her off the conspiracy's radar. And tonight, she'd forced his hand. I'm sorry, she whispered. Don't be. Roman pulled back to look at her. I'm not. I'm done hiding. Done pretending you're not the center of my entire world. Let them come. Let them try. His eyes flashed gold. They'll learn what it means to threaten what's mine. Before Evelyn could respond, a sharp knock sounded at the door. Roman's head snapped up, a growl rumbling in his chest. Who? Captain Dane, Your Majesty. Urgent news. Roman stood, his entire demeanor shifting from vulnerable mate to warrior king in an instant. Enter. The door opened and a tall, scarred man in guard captain's armor strode in. His eyes flicked briefly to Evelyn, widened slightly, then focused on Roman. Your Majesty. Duke Ashford has fled the castle. He took his daughter and approximately 30 men, including several council members. They rode for the southern border an hour ago. Roman's expression went cold. He's running to Duke Thorne. They're consolidating forces. It appears so, Your Majesty. And there's more. Dane's jaw tightened. We found evidence in Ashford's chambers. Letters. Plans. They've been coordinating with rogue packs in the southern territories. If they unite, we'll be facing a civil war. Roman finished grimly. Evelyn's blood turned to ice. Civil war. Because of her. I need to leave, she said, standing abruptly. If I go, if I disappear, they'll have no reason. No. Roman's voice cracked like a whip. Absolutely not. Evelyn, you're not understanding. This conspiracy has been building for years. You didn't cause it. You're just the excuse they're using to move now. He turned to Dane. Double the guard on this wing. No one gets near these chambers without my personal authorization. And send word to Lords Blackwood and Silverfong. I need loyal allies here within 2 days. Yes, Your Majesty. Dane bowed and left. Roman turned back to Evelyn, and the fierce protectiveness in his eyes made her knees weak. You're staying here. In my chambers. Under my protection. Until this is over. Roman, I can't. People will talk. Let them talk. You're my mate. Where else would you be? He moved closer, his presence overwhelming. Besides, the talking is the least of our problems. Ashford's faction will make their move soon. And when they do, I need you safe. I'm not a warrior. I'm not even a wolf. I can't help you fight. You help me by staying alive. His hands found hers, gripping tight. By being the reason I have to win. The reason I have to survive. His voice softened. You're my mate, Evelyn. My strength. My purpose. Don't you understand? You're not a weakness they can exploit. You're the reason I'm strong enough to face them." Tears burned in Evelyn's eyes. She'd spent 3 years believing she was nothing. But to him, she was everything. "What do we do now?" she whispered. Roman's smile was sharp, dangerous. "Now, we prepare for war." The next 3 days passed in a blur of activity that left Evelyn's head spinning. Roman had meant what he said about keeping her close. She barely left his chambers, not because he locked her in, but because the moment she tried to venture out, she was surrounded by guards, servants, and increasingly hostile court nobles who stared at her like she was a disease infecting their perfect world. It was easier to stay in the safety of Roman's rooms, where he taught her what she needed to know. The conspiracy isn't just about power, Roman explained on the second morning, spreading maps across his war table while Evelyn watched. It's about fear. The old noble houses are terrified of change, of losing their grip on power, of a future where bloodline matters less than capability. "And you represent change," Evelyn said quietly. "I do. I've been pushing reforms since I took the throne. Giving land to common-born wolves who prove themselves in service. Allowing females to hold titles in their own right. Reducing the power of the great houses." He glanced at her. "Making enemies with every progressive decision. Why do it then? If it makes you vulnerable." "Because it's right." Roman's voice was firm. "Because a kingdom that only serves its elite is a kingdom that deserves to fall." Because he moved around the table to stand before her. "I want to build a world where a girl without a pack, without a wolf, without a noble name can still matter. Can still have value." He cupped her face gently. "I want to build a world worthy of you." Evelyn's breath caught. "Roman, I know you think you're nothing, but you're going to be queen. And the changes I've been fighting for? They'll mean something. They'll protect others like you. Others who've been cast aside by a system that only values power and bloodline." "I don't know how to be queen," Evelyn admitted. "I barely know how to survive in this world." "Then I'll teach you." Roman's thumb brushed her lower lip. "Starting now." Over the next days, he did exactly that. He taught her the names and houses of every major noble family. Showed her the alliance maps, explaining who was loyal, who was wavering, who was definitely with the conspiracy. He had her sit in on meetings with his inner circle, battle-hardened warriors who initially looked skeptical, but gradually warmed to her quiet intelligence and unexpected insights. "You see patterns," Roman told her one evening after she'd pointed out a supply route the conspirators might use. "You notice details others miss." "That's valuable, Evelyn. More valuable than any wolf." "But the most important lessons happened in private. The bond between us," Roman said one night as they sat before the fire, "is sacred. But it's also practical. When it's complete, when you accept it fully, we'll be able to share strength. I'll be able to lend you my wolf's power. You'll be able to sense my emotions, my location. We'll be connected in ways that make us nearly impossible to defeat together." "When I accept it?" Evelyn asked. "I thought I already." "You're scared. Holding back. I can feel it." Roman's voice was gentle, not accusatory. "Part of you still doesn't believe this is real. Doesn't believe you deserve it. And until you truly accept the bond, accept yourself, it won't complete." He was right. She could feel it too, the connection between them, growing stronger every day, but still incomplete. Like a bridge with one side not quite anchored. "I'm trying," she whispered. "I know." Roman pulled her closer, letting her rest against his chest. "And I'll wait as long as you need." But time was running out. On the third night, Dane burst into the chambers with news that made Roman's expression go deadly. "They're moving. Duke Thorne's army crossed into the Northern Territories this morning. 500 strong, with Duke Ashford's forces joining them. They're marching for the capital." Roman stood slowly, his entire body radiating controlled fury. "How long do we have?" "4 days. Maybe 5 if they stop to gather more support." "They won't stop." Roman's jaw tightened. "Thorne is too smart for that. He'll want to strike before our allies can gather." He turned to Evelyn, and the pain in his eyes made her chest ache. I have to leave. Take the army out to meet them before they reach the city. Evelyn stood, her heart hammering. You're leaving. I have to. If they reach the capital, thousands of civilians could die in the fighting. I need to meet them in the field, away from innocents. He crossed to her, taking her hands. You'll stay here. The castle is defensible. I'm leaving a full garrison to protect you. No. The word came out stronger than Evelyn expected. You're not leaving me behind. Roman's eyes widened. Evelyn, it's too dangerous. It's too dangerous for both of us. She squeezed his hands. You said we're stronger together. That the bond makes us nearly impossible to defeat. How can that be true if you leave me behind? You have no wolf. No way to defend yourself if. Then defend me. Keep me close. Let me be the strength you said I was. Evelyn's voice shook but held firm. I'm done hiding, Roman. Done letting fear control my life. If you're going to war, I'm going with you. Evelyn. I'm your mate. Your queen. Where you go, I go. She met his golden eyes steadily. Besides, you need me. You said the bond makes you stronger. And something tells me you're going to need every advantage you can get. Roman stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he smiled, fierce and proud and full of something that might have been hope. You're sure? I'm terrified. But yes, I'm sure. He pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. Then we face this together. The army marched at dawn. Evelyn had never seen anything like it. 500 of Roman's personal guard, hardened warriors in black and silver armor, moving with the disciplined precision of wolves who'd fought together for years. Horses snorted and stamped. Weapons gleamed in the early morning light. Battle standards snapped in the wind. And at the center of it all, mounted on a massive warhorse, was Roman. He looked every inch the Lycan king, armor covering his chest and shoulders, sword strapped to his back, his presence radiating command and power. But when his eyes found Evelyn in the crowd, they softened. She was dressed in practical traveling clothes now, leather riding pants, sturdy boots, a warm cloak. Lady Margaret had somehow produced them overnight, along with a fierce hug and whispered words. You're braver than you know, child. Show them what a true queen looks like. Now Evelyn approached Roman's horse, trying to project confidence she didn't feel. Ready? He asked quietly. No, but I'm coming anyway. His smile was quick, genuine. He reached down, offering his hand. Then up. You ride with me. Evelyn grasped his hand and let him pull her up behind him on the horse. The moment she settled against his back, arms wrapping around his waist, she felt it, the bond between them flaring to life, stronger than ever before. His strength flowing into her. His confidence settling over her shoulders like armor. Together, his voice whispered in her mind, and Evelyn gasped. You can hear me? Roman asked aloud, glancing back. Yes. How? The bond is getting stronger. Especially now that you've stopped fighting it. His hand covered hers where it rested against his stomach. Hold tight, mate. We have a long ride ahead. The army moved out, leaving the castle behind. They rode for 2 days, pushing hard toward the border where scouts reported Duke Thorne's forces were gathering. Each night, they made camp and Roman kept Evelyn close, sharing his tent, his fire, his plans. Thorne will expect a direct confrontation, Roman explained the second night, using sticks to draw formations in the dirt. He has more men, but mine are better trained. If we can draw them into the valley here, he pointed, we can use the terrain to neutralize their numbers advantage. And if his forces are as big as the scouts say? Captain Dane asked grimly. Then we pray the bond is as powerful as the legends claim. Roman's eyes found Evelyn. And we trust in fate. On the 3rd day, they reached the valley. And saw Duke Thorne's army waiting. Evelyn's blood ran cold. There were so many, at least 700 men, maybe more, spread across the valley floor in organized ranks. Multiple noble house banners flew above them. This wasn't just a conspiracy. It was a full-scale rebellion. Bigger than we thought, Dane muttered. Doesn't matter. Roman's voice was steady. We hold the high ground. We have better training. And we have something they don't. What's that? Another commander asked. Roman's hand found Evelyn's where she still sat behind him on the horse. We have everything to fight for. As the army prepared for battle, Roman finally dismounted and helped Evelyn down. His hands lingered on her waist, his expression conflicted. I need you to stay in the rear guard, he said quietly. Protected. Safe. Roman. Please. His voice cracked slightly. I can't focus on the battle if I'm terrified they'll reach you. Let me fight knowing you're safe. Let me. A horn blast cut through the air. Both their heads snapped toward the valley, where Duke Thorne's army was moving. Not toward Roman's forces. Toward the castle. No, Roman breathed. No, that's impossible. They can't have. Another scout came racing up on horseback, his face pale. Your Majesty, there's another army. Coming from the east. Duke Harvey's forces, they've been hiding in the forests. They're marching on the capital while we're here. Evelyn's stomach dropped. It was a trap. Thorne's army was just a distraction. The real attack was on the castle, on the city, on the civilians Roman had been trying to protect. Roman's face went white with fury and horror. How many? At least 500. Maybe more. And Your Majesty, the scout's voice shook. They're not taking prisoners. They're burning villages on the way. This isn't just a rebellion. It's a purge. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Roman had two choices: stay and fight Thorne's army here, or race back to defend the capital. But his forces weren't big enough to do both. And splitting them would leave both groups vulnerable. It was an impossible choice. Evelyn watched the agony play across Roman's face as he realized the trap he'd walked into. Then she felt it. A pull, deep in her chest. Like something waking up from a long sleep. Heat spread through her body, not painful, but intense. Power she'd never felt before rising like a tide. And with it came a voice, not Roman's, not external, but from inside her own mind. Wake up. He needs you. We need you. It's time. Evelyn gasped, her knees buckling. Roman caught her instantly. Evelyn? What's wrong? There's something. Her skin was burning. The world seemed too bright, too sharp. She could smell everything, the horses, the leather, the fierce sweat on the soldiers nearby. Could hear hearts beating, whispers 100 yards away, the rustle of grass in the wind. Your wolf, Roman breathed, recognition and wonder filling his face. Evelyn, your wolf is waking up. That's impossible. I've never. The bond. The danger. It's triggering your dormant wolf. His hands framed her face. Evelyn, listen to me. Don't fight it. Let her come. Let her surface. I don't know how. Yes, you do. You've always known. You just didn't trust yourself enough to try. Roman's eyes blazed gold. Trust yourself now. Trust the bond. Trust me. The heat intensified. Evelyn's vision blurred, then sharpened. She could feel something inside her, something powerful and wild and ancient, pushing toward consciousness. A wolf. Her wolf. That's it, Roman encouraged. Let her come. Show them what you are. Show them what we are together. And then, for the first time in 18 years, Evelyn's wolf opened her eyes. Power exploded through her body. Silver light, pure and bright and impossibly powerful, burst from her skin, lighting up the entire valley like a second sun. Every wolf in Roman's army howled in response, feeling the presence of something ancient, something blessed, something that shouldn't exist, but did. A moon-touched wolf. Born dormant. Awakened by true mate bond. The rarest gift the moon goddess could bestow. Evelyn's body shifted, bones were forming, for erupting, senses exploding into hyper-awareness. It should have hurt. Should have been agonizing for a first shift. Instead, it felt like coming home. When the light faded, a silver wolf stood where Evelyn had been. Larger than a normal female. Glowing faintly with residual moonlight. Her eyes, when she looked up at Roman, weren't amber or gold. They were pure silver. Roman dropped to his knees before her, his expression a mixture of awe, love, and fierce pride. "Hello, mate," he whispered. Then he threw back his head and howled, a sound of pure joy that echoed across the valley. And Evelyn, finally whole, finally herself, howled with him. The silver wolf that was Evelyn stood in the center of Roman's army, moonlight still shimmering across her fur like living starlight. Every warrior had fallen silent, staring at the impossible sight before them. A moon-touched wolf. The legends spoke of them, wolves blessed directly by the moon goddess herself, born once in a millennium, carrying power that could heal, protect, or destroy. They were myth. Fantasy. Stories told to cubs at bedtime. Until now. Roman shifted beside her, his own transformation swift and controlled. His wolf was massive, black as midnight with those same golden eyes. He pressed against her side, a rumble of pride and possessiveness vibrating through his chest. "You're magnificent," his voice echoed in her mind, clear as day through their completed bond. "Do you feel it? The full connection?" Evelyn did. She could feel everything, his emotions, his thoughts, his absolute certainty that together they were unstoppable. The bond sang between them, silver and gold light intertwining. But there was no time to marvel. Captain Dane approached cautiously, bowing his head in respect to both wolves. "Your Majesty, my queen, we still face an impossible choice. Thorn's army blocks our path here. Duke Harvey marches on the capital. We cannot fight both." Roman shifted back to human form, and after a moment of concentration, so did Evelyn. Her first shift back was clumsy, disorienting, but Roman's hands were there to steady her. "We don't have to fight both," Roman said, his voice carrying new authority. "Not if we can move fast enough." He turned to Evelyn, and she felt his plan forming through the bond before he spoke it aloud. "Moon-touched wolves have abilities beyond normal shifters. Speed, endurance," and his eyes gleamed. "The ability to share power with their pack through the bond. Evelyn, if you can extend our connection, lend your speed to the warriors, we could reach the capital before Harvey's forces. Leave a holding force here to keep Thorn occupied." "I don't know how," Evelyn admitted. "I just shifted for the first time 5 minutes ago." "You'll know. Trust your wolf. Trust the bond." Roman's hand found hers. "We do this together. Always." Evelyn closed her eyes, reaching for the connection between them. Then, tentatively, she pushed outward, letting the silver light of her moon blessing flow through Roman's bond to his warriors. The effect was immediate. 500 soldiers gasped as power flooded through them. Their eyes glowed brighter. Their wolves surged closer to the surface. Strength and speed they'd never felt before filled their bodies. By the moon, Dane breathed. "I feel like I could run for days without stopping." "You can," Roman said grimly. "We all can. Now let's use it." He turned to his commanders. "Leave 200 here under Commander Mikhail's command. Hold this valley. Keep Thorn engaged. The rest of us run for the capital." Now. The army mobilized with stunning speed. Within minutes, 300 wolves, supercharged with Evelyn's moon blessing, were racing across the countryside at speeds that should have been impossible. Evelyn ran at Roman's side, her silver for a beacon in the darkness, feeling the bond keeping all 300 warriors connected, energized, unstoppable. They covered in 4 hours what should have taken 2 days. But they were still too late. They crested the final hill overlooking the capital just as dawn broke, and saw the city burning. Evelyn's wolf whimpered. Below them, Duke Harvey's forces had breached the outer walls. Smoke rose from multiple districts. She could hear screaming even from this distance, civilians caught in the violence, homes burning, chaos spreading through the streets. Roman's anguished howl echoed across the valley. His city, his people, burning. "This is my fault," Evelyn thought through the bond, horror crashing over her. If I hadn't forced you to claim me publicly, if I hadn't come with you, if I'd just stayed hidden. No. Roman's mental voice was fierce. This was always going to happen. The conspiracy was always going to strike. You're not the cause, you're the reason we have a chance to win. But as they watched, a new horror unfolded. Duke Harvey's forces weren't just attacking randomly. They were moving with purpose, driving toward one specific location, the castle. And in the courtyard, Evelyn could see a group of nobles, hostages, she realized with sick certainty, being forced to their knees. They're going to execute them, Dane growled. Make a statement. Show that the old king is dead and new power is taking over. Roman's entire body vibrated with barely controlled rage. How many forces do they have inside the city? At least 400. And they control the gates. We'd have to fight through the streets, building by building. By the time we reach the castle, those people will be dead. Roman's jaw clenched. There has to be another way. Evelyn felt it then, a pull through the bond. Not from Roman. From something else. Something ancient and powerful calling to the moon blessing in her blood. She looked up. The sun was rising, but the moon was still visible, pale and ghostly against the dawn sky. And it was full. Show them what you are, a voice whispered. Not Roman's. Not her wolf's. The moon goddess herself, speaking through the bond. Show them why I blessed you. Show them that hope still exists. Roman, Evelyn said quietly. I think I can help. But you have to trust me. He shifted to human form immediately, his eyes searching hers. Tell me. The moon blessing. It's not just about speed and strength. It's about light, protection, healing. Evelyn's words came faster, certainty building. What if I could create a barrier? Something that stops them from killing the hostages long enough for us to reach them. That's not possible. No wolf has that kind of power. No normal wolf, Evelyn interrupted. But I'm moon-touched. Blessed directly by the goddess. And right now, she's telling me to try. Roman stared at her for a long heartbeat. Then he nodded slowly. What do you need? You. The bond. And every wolf in this army channeling their strength through me. She looked at the 300 warriors watching them. I need to borrow your power. All of it. Can you do that? Can you trust me? As one, every warrior present bowed their heads. Our queen commands, Dane said simply. We follow. Tears burned in Evelyn's eyes. Queen. They'd called her queen. Accepted her. Even knowing she was newly shifted, untrained, terrified. Because they feel the bond, Roman said through their connection. They feel what I feel. They know you're meant for this. Evelyn shifted back to wolf form, her silver fur catching the dawn light. Roman shifted beside her, pressing against her flank. And then, one by one, 300 wolves sat in a circle around them, their eyes glowing, their power offered freely. Evelyn reached for it all. The bond with Roman blazed like the sun. The connections to his warriors flared to life, 300 threads of gold connecting to her silver core. And through it all, she felt the moon's presence, ancient and vast and loving. Show them hope, the goddess whispered. Remind them why they fight. Evelyn threw back her head and howled. Silver light exploded from her body, not violent, but vast. It spread outward like dawn breaking, racing across the valley, through the city streets, flowing toward the castle with the inevitability of moonrise. In the castle courtyard, Duke Harvey stood over the kneeling hostages, sword raised for execution. His forces held the walls. Victory seemed certain. Then the light hit. A dome of pure silver moonlight materialized over the courtyard, shimmering, beautiful, and absolutely impenetrable. Harvey's sword bounced off it like striking diamond. His soldiers' weapons couldn't pierce it. The hostages, huddled inside the protective barrier, looked up in wonder and hope. What is this? Harvey roared. What magic? Moon-touched, one of his advisors gasped, his face going pale. The legends. The girl, she's actually moon-touched. Panic rippled through the rebel forces. Because everyone knew the legends. Moon-touched wolves were blessed by the goddess herself. Attacking one was blasphemy. Killing one would bring the moon's curse upon your entire bloodline. And now one stood between them and victory. Attack! Roman's howl echoed across the city. For the northern territories. For your queen. 300 supercharged wolves crashed into the city like a silver tsunami. The battle that followed was brutal and swift. Roman's forces, enhanced by Evelyn's moon blessing, tore through Harvey's army with devastating efficiency. They moved faster, hit harder, fought with the kind of coordination that only came from being connected through a powerful bond. But Harvey's forces had numbers and desperation on their side. The fighting spread through the streets. Civilians caught in the crossfire. Buildings burning. Blood on cobblestones. The kind of urban warfare that Roman had tried to avoid. And through it all, Evelyn held the barrier. She could feel the strain, maintaining the protective dome while also channeling power to 300 warriors was draining her faster than she'd thought possible. Her legs shook. Her vision blurred. The silver light flickered. Hold on, Roman's voice urged through the bond. We're almost there. Just a little longer. But a little longer felt impossible. Duke Harvey, realizing the battle was turning against him, made a desperate play. He gathered his remaining forces, at least 200 wolves, and threw them not at Roman's army, but at Evelyn herself. If we kill the moon-touched, the barrier falls. The blessing ends. And their army loses its advantage. Roman felt the shift in strategy through the bond. Felt the surge of enemies turning toward where Evelyn stood on the hillside, exhausted and vulnerable. Evelyn. He tried to reach her, but he was in the center of the city, surrounded by fighting too far away. The 200 wolves charged toward the hillside. Toward his mate. Toward everything that mattered. Evelyn saw them coming. Felt Roman's terror through the bond. Knew she couldn't hold both the barrier and defend herself. She had to choose. Drop the barrier and defend herself, letting the hostages die. Or maintain the barrier and face the charging army alone. I'm sorry, she whispered through the bond to Roman. I'm so sorry. But I can't let them kill innocents because of me. She held the barrier. And prepared to die. The charging wolves were 50 feet away. 20 feet. 10. Roman's anguished howl split the air. And then something impossible happened. The dawn sky darkened. Not with clouds. With wings. Massive, silver-feathered wings. A creature descended from the sky, part wolf, part eagle, part something ancient and divine. It landed between Evelyn and the charging army with an impact that shook the ground. The moon goddess's avatar. Her physical manifestation in the mortal realm. The charging wolves skidded to a stop, their eyes wide with terror and awe. You dare attack my chosen? The avatar's voice echoed in every mind present. You dare raise claws against the moon-touched in the sacred city under the full moon's light? Duke Harvey, who'd been leading the charge, actually whimpered. Goddess, please, we meant no. You meant to kill her. To destroy the blessing I bestowed. To end the bond one sanctified. The avatar's eyes blazed silver. Your conspiracy is over, Duke Harvey. Your rebellion ends here. Surrender now or face my judgment. For a heartbeat, Harvey hesitated. Then, in a final act of desperate stupidity, he lunged for Evelyn. The avatar moved faster than thought. One massive paw, more weapon than limb, struck Harvey mid-leap. He crashed to the ground and didn't rise. Not dead, Evelyn realized. But broken. Defeated. And terrified. I surrender, he gasped. I surrender. His remaining forces, seeing their leader broken by the moon goddess herself, threw down their weapons. The rebellion was over. The avatar turned to Evelyn, and its expression softened into something almost maternal. You did well, little wolf. Holding the barrier while facing death, that took courage. It reached out one massive wing, and silver light flowed from the avatar into Evelyn. But you've overtaxed yourself. Rest now. Let me carry the burden for a moment. Evelyn felt the strain lift. felt her strength returning as the Avatar's power supported her. The barrier over the courtyard solidified, no longer dependent on her alone. "Thank you," she whispered mentally. "You have nothing to thank me for. You are mine, blessed, chosen, beloved. I will always come when you need me." The Avatar looked toward the city where Roman was fighting his way toward them. "But your mate needs you more than I do. Go to him. Show him you're alive." Evelyn shifted to human form, easier now, more natural, and ran. She met Roman halfway, both of them covered in dirt and blood and exhaustion. He caught her in his arms, holding so tight she couldn't breathe, his entire body shaking. "I thought I lost you," he rasped against her hair. "I felt them charging, felt you choosing to hold the barrier, and I thought, I'm here. I'm alive. The goddess came. I know. I saw." He pulled back just enough to look at her face, his eyes fierce. "Don't you ever do that again. Don't ever choose to die to save others. You're too important." "I'm the queen," Evelyn interrupted gently. "Isn't protecting our people part of the job?" Roman's laugh was half-sob. "You're impossible. Infuriating. And perfect." He kissed her then, desperate and claiming and full of relief so profound it made her knees weak. When they pulled apart, Captain Dane was approaching, his expression grim but satisfied. "Your Majesty. My queen. The city is secured. Harvey's forces have surrendered. The hostages are safe." He paused. "And the Avatar has decreed that Duke Harvey and his co-conspirators will face the moon's justice." "Meaning?" Roman asked. "They'll stand trial. But not a human trial. A sacred trial under the full moon, where the goddess herself will judge their crimes." Dane's smile was sharp. "They can't lie, can't manipulate, can't scheme their way out. Just truth and consequences." Roman nodded slowly. "Good. Let them face divine justice. They've earned it." "And Thorne's forces?" Evelyn asked. Commander Mikhail sent word. When they saw the Avatar descend, when they felt the goddess's presence manifest, Thorne's army broke. Surrendered. The rebellion is completely over. Over. Evelyn could hardly process it. 3 days ago, she'd been a nobody. A wolfless ward running from humiliation. Now she was standing in a battlefield, her mate's arm around her waist, warriors bowing to her as their queen. "Is this real?" she asked Roman through their bond. "It's real," he promised. "All of it. The bond, the blessing, your wolf, your place at my side. Real and permanent and ours." The Avatar approached them then, shrinking down to something closer to wolf size, still massive, still otherworldly, but less overwhelming. "Roman Blackthorn," it said, its voice warm now. "You've waited long for your mate. Protected her when she didn't know she needed protection. Honored the bond even when it cost you pain to stay distant." Roman bowed his head respectfully. "She was worth the wait, blessed one." "She is." The Avatar turned its silver eyes to Evelyn. "And you, little wolf. You've grown so much in 3 days. From frightened girl to warrior queen. From dormant to awakened. From alone to bonded." "I had help," Evelyn said quietly. "Roman never gave up on me. Even when I didn't believe in myself. That's what mates do. They see what we cannot see in ourselves." The Avatar's wing brushed both of them. "Your bond is strong. True. Sacred. But it's not yet complete. There's one final step." Roman's hand tightened on Evelyn's waist. "The mating ceremony." "Yes. Under the full moon, in sacred space, you must complete the bond. Merge your souls fully. Become one in truth as you already are in spirit." The Avatar smiled, an expression that shouldn't have worked on a creature half wolf, half divine, but somehow did. "But that's for later. First, you have a kingdom to save. Civilians to heal. A court to rebuild." "How?" Evelyn asked. "The conspiracy ran deep. How do we know who we can trust?" "Your moon touched. You can sense truth from lies now. Use that gift. Rebuild your court with wolves who actually serve the realm, not their own ambition." The Avatar began to fade, becoming translucent. My time in this form is ending. But know this, I will always watch over you, Evelyn. You are my blessed daughter. My gift to this realm. Never doubt your worth again." And then, with a flash of silver light, the avatar was gone, leaving just the dawn, the city, and two mates standing together amid the aftermath of battle. The next 2 weeks were a whirlwind of activity that made the battle seem simple by comparison. The sacred trial happened on the next full moon. Duke Harvey, Duke Ashford, Duke Thorne, and 12 other conspirators were brought before an altar under moonlight. Evelyn and Roman watched as the moon goddess's presence descended, and one by one, the conspirators were forced to speak their crimes aloud, unable to lie, unable to hide, every betrayal and murder and scheme laid bare. Some wept. Some raged. None could escape judgment. The moon's verdict was swift: exile from the northern territories forever, their titles and lands stripped, their bloodlines marked with shame. They would live, but as nothing, commoners in foreign lands, forever cut off from wolf society. A mercy, many said. Evelyn thought it was worse than death. After the trial came the rebuilding. Roman had been right. Evelyn's moon blessing gave her the ability to sense truth from lies. She sat beside him in the throne room as they interviewed every member of the court, every noble house, every advisor. Those who'd been complicit in the conspiracy were removed. Those who'd been coerced or ignorant were given second chances. And new wolves were elevated. Common-born warriors who'd fought bravely. Merchants who'd sheltered civilians during the attack. Servants who'd risked their lives to protect the innocent. Roman made good on his promise to build a kingdom based on merit, not bloodline. And Evelyn discovered she had opinions about governance. Strong opinions. "The orphans," she said during one council meeting. "The city has hundreds of children who lost parents in the fighting. We can't just leave them to fend for themselves." "The church traditionally handles orphans," one advisor said dismissively. "The church is overwhelmed. And frankly, they don't have resources." Evelyn leaned forward, ignoring the surprised looks at her boldness. "We need a royal program. Housing, education, training. We make them wards of the crown like I was, but we do it right. Give them real support, real opportunities." Roman's pride flowed through the bond. "Make it happen. Draft a proposal. You'll oversee it personally." The advisors who dismissed her suddenly looked nervous. Their queen apparently had teeth. Over the following days, Evelyn implemented more changes. A healing center for trauma survivors. A job program for displaced workers. New trade agreements that favored common merchants over established noble houses. Education reforms that gave wolfless children the same opportunities as their gifted peers. "You're going to be remembered as the reformer queen," Roman told her one evening as they reviewed proposals in his study, their study now. "The one who changed everything." "I'm just fixing the things that were broken." Evelyn looked up from her papers. "The things that hurt me for 3 years. I don't want anyone else to feel that way. And that's exactly why you're perfect for this." Roman pulled her into his lap, nuzzling her neck. "But you've been working nonstop for 2 weeks. Don't you think it's time we focused on something else?" "Like what?" His smile was wicked. "Like completing our bond." Heat flooded through Evelyn. They'd been so busy with the aftermath that they hadn't had time for the final step, the mating ceremony that would seal their bond permanently. "Tonight," she whispered. "Tonight. Under the full moon. In the sacred grove." His arms tightened around her. "Unless you want to wait." "No." Evelyn's voice was firm. "I've waited long enough. We both have." The sacred grove stood at the heart of the royal forest, a place where ancient oaks formed a natural cathedral, where moonlight always seemed brighter, where the veil between mortal and divine was gossamer thin. Evelyn and Roman entered alone, as tradition demanded. She wore simple white, a dress that flowed like moonlight, leaving her shoulders bare. No crown, no jewelry, no markers of rank. Just herself. Roman wore black leather and nothing else, traditional garb for a mating ceremony. His chest bare, his wolf visible just beneath the surface, his golden eyes glowing with love and hunger and anticipation. They met in the center of the grove, where moonlight pooled like liquid silver. "Are you ready?" Roman asked quietly. "Once we do this, there's no going back. We'll be bound for life. Your soul to mine. Your fate to mine." "I've been bound to you since the moment I saw you in that garden," Evelyn said. "This is just making it official." Roman's smile was beautiful and fierce. "Then let's begin." The ritual was ancient and sacred. They knelt facing each other. Roman took Evelyn's hands, and she felt the bond between them flaring to life, gold and silver light intertwining. "I, Roman Blackthorn, Alpha King of the Northern Territories, offer my soul to my fated mate," he said, the formal words carrying weight beyond mere speech. "I pledge my strength, my protection, my loyalty, and my love. For as long as we both shall live." Evelyn, she paused. She'd never had a last name. Never had a family name to claim. Roman squeezed her hands. "Evelyn Moonshadow," he whispered. "Take your name from your blessing. From what you are." Tears burned her eyes. "I, Evelyn Moonshadow, moon-touched of the Northern Territories, offer my soul to my fated mate. I pledge my strength, my protection, my loyalty, and my love. For as long as we both shall live." The moonlight intensified. Not the avatar this time. Just the moon's presence, blessing them, witnessing their union. Roman leaned forward, his lips brushing hers. "I claim you as mine." "I claim you as mine," Evelyn whispered back. They kissed, gentle at first, then deeper. And as they kissed, the bond between them didn't just flare. It fused. Gold and silver merged into something new. Something neither had experienced before. Complete unity. Not just emotions, but thoughts, memories, souls blending until Evelyn couldn't tell where she ended and Roman began. She felt his loneliness over the years. His fear when he first realized his mate was so young. His joy when she finally shifted. His absolute certainty that she was perfect. And he felt hers, the years of isolation, the pain of not belonging, the moment she chose to hold the barrier knowing she might die. The love that had been growing for weeks now, consuming and vast and utterly certain. When they pulled apart, both were crying. "I can feel you," Evelyn gasped. "Everything. Your wolf, your heart, your—" "I know." Roman's voice was rough. "That's what complete bond means. We're one soul now. One heart. One purpose." He stood, pulling her to her feet, and she felt his desire through the bond, not just physical, though that was there too. Desire to protect, cherish, worship. To spend every moment making up for the 3 years she'd felt alone. "Take me home," Evelyn whispered. "Our home. And show me what it means to be truly bonded." Roman's smile was promise and possession. "As my queen commands." They shifted together, his midnight black, her silver light, and ran through the forest as one, their howls harmonizing, their bond singing with completion. The days that followed were a revelation. The complete bond changed everything. Evelyn could feel Roman's presence constantly, not intrusively, but comfortingly. Like having a piece of him always with her. When he was in council meetings and she was working on her programs, she could sense his support and pride. When she faced nobles who still doubted her, she could draw on his confidence. And he could draw on her gifts too. Her ability to sense truth. Her moon blessing. Her capacity for compassion that balanced his sometimes harsh justice. They governed together. Truly together. Making decisions as one, presenting a unified front that no one dared challenge. "They're calling you the Moon Queen," Lady Margaret told Evelyn one afternoon. "And not just because of the blessing. Because you brought light to darkness. Hope to despair. Change to stagnation." "I just did what needed doing," Evelyn protested. "Exactly. And that's what makes you a true queen." 3 months after the battle, Evelyn stood on the castle balcony and looked out over the city. The damage had been repaired. The civilians had returned to their lives. Trade was flourishing under the new agreements. Orphans had homes. The wounded had healed. And she had a home too. Not just the castle. Not just the kingdom. But in Roman's arms. In his heart. In their bond. "What are you thinking?" Roman asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "That 3 months ago, I was running from a feast in tears, convinced I was nothing. And now? Now I'm standing in the castle I help rule, next to the maid I love, with a bond one can feel in my bones." She leaned back against him. "Now I know I was never nothing. I was just waiting to become myself." Roman nuzzled her neck. "Thank you for waiting. For not giving up. For being brave enough to claim what was yours. Thank you for finding me." She turned in his arms. "For seeing me when I was invisible. For loving me before I could love myself." They kissed soft and sweet and full of promise. And in the distance, the moon rose early, bright and full and approving. 1 year later. The anniversary celebration of the Battle of Moonrise, as historians had started calling it, filled the capital with joy. Banners hung from every building. Music filled the streets. And in the castle, a grand feast was being prepared. Not to commemorate violence, but to celebrate what had been built in its aftermath. Evelyn stood in her chambers, their chambers. She still had to remind herself, adjusting the crown that no longer felt foreign on her head. It was beautiful, a masterwork of silver and moonstone that caught the light like captured starlight. "You look radiant," Hannah said from the doorway. Evelyn turned, smiling at her best friend who'd become her personal advisor. After the battle, Evelyn had brought Hannah to court, partly because she needed someone she trusted, partly because Hannah had organizational skills that made even hardened warriors weep with gratitude. "I look nervous," Evelyn corrected. "Why? You've been queen for a year. You've literally faced down a divine avatar. A feast should be easy. It's not the feast." Evelyn's hand unconsciously went to her stomach. "It's the announcement." Hannah's eyes widened. "You're going to tell them? Tonight?" "Roman thinks it's time. And the healers confirmed it yesterday. I'm definitely pregnant." Hannah squealed, then clapped her hand over her mouth. Sorry, I know it's supposed to be secret until the announcement, but oh my gods, Evelyn, you're going to have a baby." "A cub," Evelyn corrected, wonder filling her voice. "Half mine, half Roman's. With both our gifts, his alpha strength, my moon blessing. The healers say they've never seen anything like it in the womb readings. The cub is already showing signs of enormous power. The first moon-touched airborne in a millennium," Hannah said softly. Evelyn, that's incredible. Terrifying. But incredible. Tell me about it." Evelyn took a deep breath. "Come on. Before I lose my courage." They walked together to the feast hall, the same hall where a year ago, Evelyn had been humiliated. Now it had been transformed. The old, stuffy decorations were gone, replaced with moonflowers and silver banners. The high table seated not just nobility but common-born advisors, warriors, even the head of the orphan program Evelyn had founded. A court that looked like the kingdom it served. Roman stood as she entered, and the bond between them sang with love and pride. He was dressed in formal black and silver, his crown a masculine counterpart to hers, all sharp angles and strength. But when he looked at her, his eyes were soft. "My queen," he said, loud enough for the hall to hear. "You're beautiful." "My king," she replied, taking her place beside him. "You're not so bad yourself." Laughter rippled through the hall. A year ago, such informal speech would have been scandalous. Now it was expected. The Moon Queen and her Alpha King didn't stand on ceremony. They ruled with strength and love and a bond everyone could feel. The feast began. Speeches were made, recounting the battle, honoring the fallen, celebrating the rebuilding. Duke Blackwood, one of Roman's most loyal supporters, stood and proposed a toast. To the king who fought for his people. To the queen who changed everything. To the Northern Territories, stronger now than ever before. "Hear, hear," the hall roared. Roman stood, and the hall fell silent. 1 year ago, he said, his voice carrying easily, this kingdom faced its darkest hour. Conspiracy. Rebellion. A battle that could have torn us apart. But we didn't just survive. We transformed. He looked at Evelyn, and she felt his love through the bond like sunshine. Because of her. Because a girl who was told she was nothing proved she was everything. A wolfless ward became a moon-touched queen. A frightened teenager became a warrior. A girl with no family built a kingdom where everyone belongs. He took her hand, helping her stand. And now, we have an announcement. One that I hope will bring joy to all of you who've worked so hard to rebuild our realm. Evelyn took a breath, her hand unconsciously moving to her stomach. I'm pregnant, she said simply. We're going to have a cub. The hall erupted. Cheers, tears, wolves howling in celebration. The news spread like wildfire. The Moon Queen was carrying an heir. A cub blessed by both alpha blood and moon magic. Hope for the future, embodied in an unborn child. Lady Margaret was crying openly. Hannah was grinning so wide her face had to hurt. Even the normally stoic Captain Dane looked misty-eyed. Roman pulled Evelyn into his arms, kissing her while the hall celebrated around them. Thank you, he whispered through the bond. For this. For everything. For being mine. Always, she promised. For as long as we both shall live. 6 months later. Evelyn's pregnancy had been the talk of the kingdom. Healers monitored her constantly. Guards watched her like hawks. Roman was unbearably protective. She couldn't walk downstairs without him hovering, couldn't work past sunset without him insisting she rest. It would have been annoying if it wasn't so endearing. I'm pregnant, not dying, she told him for the 100th time as he insisted on carrying her to bed. You're carrying the most important cub in the kingdom. Forgive me for being careful. You're being ridiculous. I'm being a good mate. She couldn't really argue with that. The birth happened on the night of the full moon, of course it did. Evelyn had gone into labor at sunset, and by the time the moon rose, she was in the royal birthing chamber, surrounded by healers and Lady Margaret, with Roman holding her hand and looking more terrified than he'd ever been in battle. I can't do this, Evelyn gasped between contractions. Yes, you can, Margaret said firmly. You faced down a divine avatar. You survived a civil war. You rebuilt a kingdom. You can definitely push out one cub. One very large, very powerful cub, the head healer muttered, checking her progress. Roman looked like he might pass out. Is she okay? Is the cub okay? Should we? Your Majesty, with all respect, you need to breathe, Margaret told him. You're not helping. 3 hours later, as the moon reached its zenith, the cub was born. A girl. With silver fur already showing through her newborn skin. Eyes that glowed even before opening. And a presence that made every wolf in the castle howl in recognition. A daughter, Roman breathed, tears streaming down his face as he held the tiny cub. We have a daughter. She's moon-touched, the head healer said in wonder. Just like her mother. The blessing passed down. I've never seen. Evelyn, exhausted and overwhelmed and completely in love, reached for her daughter. The moment the cub was placed in her arms, the bond formed, not romantic like with Roman, but maternal. Fierce. Protective. All-encompassing. Hello, little one, Evelyn whispered. I'm your mother. And I promise you'll never feel alone. Never feel like you don't belong. Never doubt your worth. The cub, who they would name Luna, after the moon goddess herself, made a small sound. Almost like she understood. Roman sat on the bed beside them, his arms wrapping around both his mate and his daughter. She's perfect, he said roughly. Just like her mother. She's going to be a handful, Evelyn predicted. With both our gifts, moon-blessed and alpha-strong, we're in trouble. Worth it, Roman said immediately. All of it. Every sleepless night, every worry, every challenge. Worth it for this. For their family. Their bond. Their future. 5 years later. Princess Luna was indeed a handful. At 5 years old, she could already shift between human and wolf form with ease, could command moonlight like her mother, could project alpha dominance like her father, and had a stubborn streak that rivaled both parents combined. She bit Duke Blackwood's son, Roman reported one evening, trying not to laugh. "Why?" Evelyn asked, exasperated. "He called one of the common-born children a bastard." Luna took exception. Roman's smile was proud. She told him that her mother used to be called that, and anyone who used it as an insult would answer to her. "She's 5. She shouldn't be biting nobles. She's a princess and a moon-touched. She can bite whoever she wants." "Roman." "Evelyn." He pulled her close. "She's learning. She'll refine her methods. But her instincts? To protect the vulnerable? To stand up for what's right? Those are perfect. Just like her mother's." Evelyn couldn't really argue. They stood on their balcony, watching Luna play in the gardens below with her younger brother, 3-year-old Marcus. They'd finally used the name, who was showing early signs of his own powerful gifts. Around them, the castle hummed with life. The kingdom thrived. The reforms had taken hold. And Evelyn felt content. "Do you ever miss it?" Roman asked quietly. "Your old life? The simplicity?" Evelyn thought about the girl who'd run crying from a feast 5 years ago. Who'd believed she was nothing. Who'd felt alone even in a crowded room. "Not even a little," she said honestly. "That girl was surviving. This woman is living. There's a difference." "I'm glad." Roman's arms tightened around her. "Because I can't imagine any of this without you. The kingdom, the family, the future, none of it works without you at my side." "Good thing I'm not going anywhere then." Evelyn turned in his arms, looking up at the man who'd crossed realms to find her, who'd waited years to claim her, who'd loved her when she couldn't love herself. "I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." They kissed as the moon rose above them, full and bright and approving. And in the gardens below, 2 cubs with silver-glowing eyes held their joy at the night sky, blessed by the moon goddess, protected by their parents' bond, destined for greatness. The Northern Territories had never been stronger. The moon-touched bloodline would continue for generations. And the girl who'd once believed she was nothing had become the queen who changed everything. Hey there, beautiful souls. Thank you so much for joining me on Evelyn and Roman's incredible journey from a humiliating feast to a sacred bond, from feeling worthless to becoming a legendary queen, from running away in tears to standing strong as a mate, mother, and ruler. Their story reminds us that sometimes the people who make us feel small are just afraid of how powerful we could become. That waiting for the right person, the right moment, is never time wasted. And that true strength isn't about being perfect, it's about being brave enough to claim what's yours, even when you're terrified. If this story touched your heart, please hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me what moment resonated with you most. Was it the garden confrontation? The wolf awakening? The avatar's appearance? Or maybe little Luna biting that noble brat? I love hearing from you all, and your comments and support mean everything to me. Also, let me know where you're watching from. I have viewers from all over the world, and it makes my heart so happy to know this community spans continents. Until next time, remember, you are not broken. You are not too much or too little. You are exactly who you're meant to be, and somewhere out there, your person is searching for you just as hard as you're searching for them. Stay strong, beautiful souls. Your story is just beginning. This is Cindy, signing off from Wolfheart Stories. May the moon light your path and may you always remember your worth.